is, but they'll leave a voice.
Hello and welcome to Assembly Update. I'm Audrey Pitcher here today with Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz from the 81st District in the Bronx. Assemblyman, thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be here.
Now, we haven't had too much going on in Albany as far as budget goes. We just passed an extender yesterday, and that'll last until Thursday, and so we'll see how that proceeds for the rest of the week, and hopefully just the rest of the week. But we have had some issues in your district, and particularly you've had some protests at, I believe, the Russian mission in your district?
Yes. So there are some things that happen in my district every week. For example, there's a march every week from Seton Park to the monument at 239th Street in support of the hostages. But also every week, there's a group of people, most weeks mostly people who are of Ukrainian ancestry, who demonstrated across the street from the Russian building on Mosholu Avenue because of the invasion of Ukraine, which is now in its third year. I think actually we're starting the fourth year. And this, a Sunday or so ago, there was a larger demonstration of people that included not only Ukrainians, but people from the community protesting Russia, protesting Putin. And it was interesting. There was a good turnout. I was happy to be there. The councilman was there as well, and a number of people we know from the community. So as I'm walking in there, I walked in towards the end because I was coming from like 3 other things that were happening at the same time. Some guy yells out from the crowd, and I didn't see who it was, something like, what are you doing about Mahmoud Khalil? Khalil is the person who the Trump administration is trying to deport. He was a leader in the protests that took place at Columbia University, literally maybe the leader, but certainly one of the top leaders that took place over the past year, where a lot of where a building was taken over, where they had the encampments, where many students, particularly Jewish students, felt they were being harassed, often by people wearing masks, although apparently Mr. Khalil was not one who was wearing masks. So this guy yells out, and I, of course, in typical fashion, I said something like, oh, I'll personally escort him out of the country. Now, apparently this person took me literally, which is kind of bizarre, but it's not unusual in this current climate where people at the political extremes of both ends just are, you know, acting a little, well, I think people know how they're acting. So there's a letter in this morning's Riverdale Press from this person who, now that I see his name, I know who he is, and he doesn't even live in the Bronx. He lives in, I think, northern Westchester, but that's okay. We allow Westchester people into the Bronx. And he was following up on a letter that I received a week ago from a group of organizations that they're called Indivisible. These groups are politically active groups. They've done a number of good things. I don't agree with everything they do, but you know, they certainly have been active people who have participated in the politics, particularly on the national level, since Trump's first election. So he writes a letter attacking me because I said I will escort him out of the country, and then he actually repeated what I wrote in response to the Indivisible people as if it was a horrible, horrible thing. So I wanted to read it because I want people to see how people react to something which I think is innocuous, but they react in a very belligerent way, because if you don't agree with somebody, they hate you. So here's what I wrote in response to their letter. And the letter to me, by the way, was in support of Khalil. It wasn't simply stand up for his rights. It was in support of him. And this is a person who supports a terrorist organization, Hamas, that has done, you know, has killed many, many people. So I write, I'm responding to your letter. This is to Indivisible, which he is part of. He's part of one of the groups. I'm writing to your letter regarding the arrest and detention of Mahmoud Khalil. Mr. Khalil was a leader of the anti-Israel mob at Columbia University. I believe he openly supports Hamas, a savage terrorist organization that is responsible for the deaths of many, many people, including Americans. So, if he's deported, I would not shed a tear. However, we are a nation of laws, and all laws must be followed in the matter. All First Amendment rights must be strictly observed. There must be due process. I'm not a constitutional expert, so I cannot say whether his rights have been violated. I assume you are not constitutional experts either. As far as I know, he has not been specifically charged with a crime. You are correct in saying that the point is not whether we agree with Mahmoud Khalil's support for Hamas terrorists who have murdered countless people, but rather whether our laws have been observed or violated. I trust the courts to make that decision. So basically I said, I don't like him. It would be great if he can be deported, but we have to follow the rules. Apparently making a statement saying we should protect whatever rights he has is not good enough, because I didn't make a statement supporting this person who has done things that I think are horrible. And this is the political climate we're in, where people, we know that the extremists on the far right, we've known where they're coming from for a long time, and they exist now. It wasn't just it's the MAGA Republicans, and worse, the people who tried to take over and destroy the U.S. Capitol during the failed coup attempt on January 6th of 2021. But the people on the far left, some of them are not much better. They demand free speech, but only believe in free speech for themselves. And anybody who has a different opinion, no free speech for them. No free speech for them. So this is the type of stuff that goes on, and we see it every day from one end of the political spectrum to the other extreme. And it's really unfortunate, because there are so many things we should be working together on. You know, right now this country is in a lot of turmoil with Trump, and every day there's another crazy thing that he's doing. And like the latest, of course, is he thinks he may want to run for a third term. Now, George Washington thought he should only be in there for 2 terms. And that was always the case until FDR. He ran and got elected 4 times. And then the 22nd Amendment was passed, which says you can only be elected president twice. But Trump, who will be 82 at the end of this current term, thinks maybe he needs to run for another term. Or maybe it's a diversion, so we don't talk about the scandal over the text messages or any one of a number of other scandals, or we don't focus on his tariffs, which have caused the stock market to plunge big time, or any one of a number of other things. But we do have a constitution in this country, and it's very clear: 2 terms. 2 terms. There's no loophole. There's no nothing. Maybe Trump thinks that he can get away with it, but he can't. But I'm beginning to think it's a diversionary tactic. So that's while all that's going on, we are trying to pass a state budget, and so far that has not happened. Today is April 2nd. The budget was due by midnight, March 31st to April 1st. So we're already late. If it's a little late, probably doesn't matter much, but it hopefully won't be terribly late.
Now, one of the big issues we've seen with the budget this year has been attempts to maintain policy items in the budget, which is a controversial issue. And one of those issues is, I believe, changes to discovery laws that Governor Hochul is requesting.
Yes, I mean, the governors typically want to put some of their policy proposals into the budget, because that's when they have the greatest leverage to get things done. After the budget is done, you know, there has to be 3-way negotiations on a particular bill, whereas here there's 3-way negotiations on like everything. So governors like to do that. The Assembly has traditionally taken a stand that we don't want to see policy in the budget. So in our one-house budget proposal, we didn't really have that. But of course, in the final budget, there will be policy that's enacted. And one of them, of course, is changes to discovery. So discovery is the process whereby prosecutors have to turn over evidence to defendants. And we made significant reforms in that process, along with bail reform, 6 years ago. There are those, including the 5 DAs from New York City, who think we need to make some changes, because way too many cases that shouldn't be dismissed because of mere technicalities are being dismissed, according to the DAs. Those organizations that represent prosecutors, represent defendants, of course, will say, oh, no, that's not true. Things are great the way they are. We don't want to change even a comma. The final answer to that will be somewhere in the middle. I think we will make some changes to discovery. I think we should make some changes to discovery, but I don't believe that we need to make wholesale changes or overturn or reverse what we did 6 years ago. But there needs to be some tweaking, I believe, because while some cases should be dismissed because discovery evidence isn't turned over, there are other cases that should definitely not be dismissed because of a minor technicality, because a small piece of evidence that maybe wasn't even relevant and certainly not prejudicial wasn't turned over. So that's what these negotiations are about, and it's important that we come to an agreement on that. And I think that's certainly what the public wants. There is no question in my mind that that if our colleagues, some of whom oppose any changes, would poll their own constituents, they would find that some people think that there needs to be some changes. The question is how significant the changes should be, and whether it accomplishes the goal of not having cases dismissed for ridiculous reasons, but at the same time protecting people's rights. And you can balance that, and I guess that's our mission over the next, however long it takes, hopefully not too long, to make that happen. But I think the governor's proposal, I believe, goes too far. But on the other hand, there are those who think that the status quo is perfect. I mean, there are some people who, if we changed a single comma or period, their heads would explode, and I don't agree with that either. So I kind of think we'll end up somewhere in the middle and come to a reasonable conclusion on that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We look forward to talking with you again soon, and we look forward to seeing what the budget holds for the rest of the week and
Okay.
possibly into next week.
Can't wait.